Hello everyone. Just wanted to make this video. I've been working on like mechanical stuff over the past few years, and I think it's a really good way to kind of make money and also learn at the same time and collect different tools, and you also get a lot of pleasure of fixing something and basically bringing it back to life and have some fun for some time and then maybe end up selling it. So I think it's a really good way of creating like a second source of income and really enjoying what you do basically. So I'm just going to go over some of the pictures. For example, I took my driving license. This is back in 2022. This is me taking the actual course. And then right after receiving the license, I went on and I purchased my first motorcycle. It was actually free. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. And I did some work to it and just ended up selling it. So the first one was a CB1000. It was a 1983. And you can see the pictures from Facebook. It was in really bad shape. It was basically sitting for a very long time. The key was still there. And then you can see here it was basically just covered in this really thin cover, and it was in really bad shape basically. The tank had a dent on the other side, and the brakes was completely frozen. The engine was in good shape. There was one cylinder that had I believe it was no spark at the time. I didn't really check the compression. This was my first bike, so I didn't really know much how to do it. You can see like the turn signals, the rubber was like very brittle. I started braking. So let's go. This was the actual air filter. So when I opened the air filter, it was completely messed up because it was sitting for such a long time. And yeah, that was pretty bad. I didn't really have a garage, so I was doing all my work near the parking lot. So basically I had an apartment and I was repairing the bike outside in the parking lot. So I did some cleaning. You can see the dent here actually. So it took me a really long time just to get the actual bike and move it. Actually, the dent on this side, now that I remember, was when I put it on the trailer, I didn't even know how to strap the bike. So I put the strap across the actual seat and on both sides. And obviously on my first left turn, wherever it was, the bike actually flipped and hit the actual bar of the trailer. And that's how I actually got that little dent there on the actual tank. The tank was completely rusted anyway, so I just ended up getting a new tank. Not new, but I mean on Facebook, just purchasing a tank. I think it was like $30 or $50. After working a little bit on the battery, I think the acid was a little low, so I filled it up a little bit with like water, with distilled water. And I played around a little bit to get it to run. So I took some more pictures. As you can see, even when I replaced the oil here, I kind of didn't seal the oil filter correctly in the beginning, and it kind of started spilling everywhere. So that's why I got this wood chips to cover the actual mess that I made there. That was actually after draining the oil correctly, and then when I put the oil filter, the gasket around the oil filter was not set up correctly. So I just ended up leaking everywhere when I started to like turn on the bike. So I had to remove it and make sure that I put a new gasket, that it had a full seal. These are some other pictures. And this is the picture of the front. And this is the actual gas tank that I purchased. So you can see it here. It's still a little rusty, but it's cleaner than the other one that I had initially. So it was in better shape, and I think I purchased it for I don't recall, I think it was $30. I did do some cleaning here. I put vinegar and let it sit for about 24 hours and then dump out all the rust basically, and then I think I used mystery oil to cover the walls of it after I was done to prevent any further rust. This is what it looked like after I put the new tank. Yeah, so this is the actual bike here again. The seat was a little chipped over there, as you can see, so the cover was... So it was mostly cleaning on this first bike, changing the oil. I did remove the carburetors, as you can see, the air filter there, so I did replace the carburetors and clean them up. I took them upstairs in my apartment and cleaned them. And obviously after cleaning, and this is actually the first video when I got it to run. So this is when it was actually running. And let me play the video so we can... You can even see that it's working a little bit rough, so that basically the one of the cylinders was not really firing. I don't know if it was the spark plug or if it was the actual low compression. You can hear that I got it to run basically, but it was not really strong enough in one of the cylinders. Even when I tried to touch the actual exhaust pipe, you could see that cylinder number, I think it was number 2, is the one that wasn't really firing. And I think I was jumping it, as you can see that I was jumping it with my car just to get it to run. I'm using like the gas, external gas basically. Here's another video. Here I kind of show that it's running. This is after the battery was charged, and I think it just powered by its own. As I said, this was my first bike, so I was just learning. Basically, after doing these repairs, I ended up selling the bike for like $800. So it wasn't very bad. I mean, you can see here, this is in August, and when I first purchased it, this was back in April. So this was about 2-3 months until I sold it. And to be honest, it was mostly like just to play around and learn and to see how things work, and it was just a start basically. And I never had a motorcycle before, so I was learning as I was going through. And initially when I purchased it, I obviously had no documents, that's why I got it for free. But as I was cleaning it up, I actually found out that it did have an old registration in the storage compartment. And that's basically all you need with a bill of sale near where I live, and you can just end up selling the bike basically. And the next owner was able to like register it and do everything else. But basically all I did is just do the main things, put a new gas tank, replace a few things, clean the carburetors, get it to run, take some pictures, videos, and as you see it here, I ended up making about $800 on this one. And right after I sold this one, as you can see, this is in August. I think in August I did sell this one, August 20th. And then right after that, I went on and purchased 2 other ones. Exactly the same bike. So 1983 CB1000s. So the person who sold these 2, He had a third one actually, and he was using the third one for his own. So he had these two as parts bikes. And so as you can see, this one, the carburetors were there in a box. Basically, he had them in a box, but he was missing a bunch of other things. He was missing like the gas tank, the air filter, few of the handles. So this was a little more involved, and the other one was missing an exhaust, the headlight, and it was basically missing a bunch of other parts. And what I did is same thing. I just pulled the carburetors. This, as you can see, is September, so the timeline for this is August 31st. I believe it was like a day or two difference from when I sold the first one for $800 and when I purchased this two for $100 basically. So I paid the guy $100 and I got both of them. And yeah, I think this is the guy who sold it to me. This was his bike. So this was a third bike basically that he had. He built this one by using the two that he sold to me as parts bikes. This was a really, really clean bike. And yeah, I just took it home. I did some cleaning. You see my house was a mess at the time as I was cleaning the carburetors and cleaning all the parts. I split the carburetors in different places. So basically this was my second project for the motorcycles, and I was deep into the carburetors trying to clean them, clean all the holes and the jets and everything. I didn't really purchase new jets or much new parts. It was mostly cleaning. I just took them apart and very carefully cleaned them and started looking at like different manuals. I joined different forums where I started downloading PDFs of the manuals and so on, different like Facebook groups as well. So as you can see here as well, splitting the carburetors, cleaning them, spraying air in them to make sure all the channels are free and so on. Here's a quick video. This is after I got it to run. So after changing the carburetors, this is the first bike actually, the first one was started running. So I just put the jumping cables, put some gas in there, and I did swap the exhaust. So I took the exhaust from the other bike and I put them on this bike. So this bike was a little more complete because it had the airbox and the air filter and the gas tank. It was just missing the exhaust basically, as you can see in this first picture. So what I did is I moved the exhaust from here to start building one bike basically. It has the actual radiator in the front. So I started to build that one first since it was more complete. And then for this one, I was not sure what I would gonna end up doing. Maybe I was planning to sell it as a parts bike, $100 or whatever. I wasn't really planning to rebuild this second one. So as you can see, cleaning the first one, this is a picture for when I actually changed the exhaust pipes to move it from one to the other. Here is in September, so it's about a month difference. And this is the actual, as you can see, I have wood box underneath the exhaust. The exhaust wasn't fully bolted on. I just put it there just because to avoid the noise, because initially I started to fire it up without the exhaust at all, and all the sparks and the flame from the combustion just came out of the exhaust holes basically in front, and it was very, very loud. So I just put partially the bolts, I put like a block of wood underneath just to hold it in place, just to get this one running and see if it ran. And I realized it was running well. I think one of the cylinders here, I purchased a tool to measure compression, and one of the cylinders here had low compression. So, but the other three were really good, so it was kind of running fine. And here is me going around, test driving it. And This is after I put the exhaust back together, so it was still missing the headlight. I did a deep cleaning in it. It was missing the side covers and obviously like the turn signals and everything. And the seat was kind of this old seat with this old cover. And here is a master cylinder. I think this is the rear one. I took it upstairs at home. I started cleaning it. It was completely frozen, basically. It was clogged. I started putting it in boiled water. I even put it in like hot oil, basically, just to get this to free up. And eventually I did get it to free up, putting it back and forth. I think I even put it in the freezer to get the housing to expand a little bit so the cylinder would come out. So it was a pretty intense project. But as you can see, now we are in October at this point. So I did clean. This is like after cleaning or in the process as I was cleaning it to make sure that all the holes in the rear master cylinder were clean. This is a picture of the actual, I think this was the speedometer. So I didn't really know much at this time, and I didn't know how the speedometer would work. It had this like square rod that was attached to the actual engine, and it would spin all the time. So it had two of them. One was for the speedometer, was on the wheel, and then the one that measures the RPM, that's the one that's actually connected to the engine. I think I flipped them around. So yeah, so this one was on the wheel, and the other one that was for the RPMs was on the engine. So I just took them out, lubricate them, sprayed some WD-40 in there because it was making weird noise every time I would ride it around, just because they were sitting for such a long time. I think the first bike was sitting for like 5 years. These two bikes were sitting for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So I did spray it, and then it started working better. This is the front of the headlight. I did have the headlight. It was in the box. So the good thing that I received with these two bikes is that I received a lot of spare parts. So part of the spare parts, he had this cover for the headlight. So all I had to do is basically assemble it back. I did fix some of the wiring to make sure that the connections were all there. And here I believe I'm checking the ignition coil. I'm not 100% certain, but I think it was the ignition coil. This is the part where the starter is, and I think at some point I did change that dog bone fuse, that it's like the big one, the main one. It's like a 50 amp fuse. I did replace that. And then after finishing that first bike, I started working on the second bike. So the second bike it was missing this gear that is near the actual starter clutch. So all it had was basically this. These are the indicators for the timing. And it was basically the gear up here is the one that connects to the starter motor. So it was basically missing the main gear for the actual starter. And I looked up the manual. This is how it's supposed to be. So the big gear, it's supposed to engage with the starter. So as you spin the starter, it's supposed to spin the actual gear. And so I started looking into that and learning more on the starter clutch. So this is the actual starter clutch as well. It was missing the whole gear and the starter clutch. So this plate in the back, this is the actual starter clutch. So all I received was basically like this, and I put tape around because I was storing it outside, so I didn't want to get any debris and stuff like that to get inside. After playing around with that, I did clean up the actual stator a little bit. This was mainly just to check and make sure that I had the correct resistance. I think I had to measure between the two bands here to see the resistance. I don't recall it exactly, and then I used this to spin the actual engine. So this is the actual crankshaft to manually spin the engine. So I would spin it from there, and align it as needed as I replaced the axle. I basically purchased a new gear with the clutch, and I think that was about $70 to replace that. Here's a picture of a connector. So I was basically sending pictures back and forth with the group, with the Facebook group and the forum that I joined. So this is mostly cleaning up. I don't recall exactly what I was cleaning here, but it's the battery area. And this is the second motorcycle, the one that I initially thought it would just be sold for like a parts bike, and I decided to fix that as well. So this is what it looked like. It was missing the airbox, the carburetors. I had them, but they were not clean basically, so they had them in the box. So I had to rebuild them. You had a side cover here where the actual gear was missing and the starter clutch, so I just taped it for the meantime. I put like towels in the inlet and towels and tape, and I also put towels in the exhaust outlet to make sure that no debris would go there. And so this was in really, really bad shape. So you can see like the brake caliper is out of the bolt there, so that needed to be rebuilt. So yeah, let me flip some more pictures so you can see the towels here in the front. All the cables that go to the carburetor. The seat didn't even have a cover, so it was basically just a trash bag that I put on just to avoid any water damage from getting there. And as you can see, the other bike was basically almost complete, so I was starting to ride that one and practice. Again, this was my second motorcycle, but the first one that I actually started riding, because the first one I never ended up riding it, I just sold it. So as you can see, I'm working on these. You can see here the tape that I put in the actual inlet, and it was missing the fender, the rear fender. So this was in really, really bad shape basically, as you can see it from these pictures. And the other one is almost complete. So the good thing is that they are all the same model, so I kind of learned as I went through from one to the other, as they are kind of sharing a lot of the parts were identical basically. So here's a picture side by side as I was cleaning them up and building the second one. So the first one I did kind of put some tape around there and fix some of the signals, the turn signals. And this is the actual starter clutch that I was missing and the gear. So this is the other person who took a picture on his bike and he sold it to me for like $70. So I bought that. That's now we're in October 2022. So it's a couple months later since I purchased them in August. And it did come with this bolt. It's like the main bolt and the cover as well. So I was also missing the cover. So I think for everything I paid like $70. And like I mentioned earlier, the good part was that with these two bikes, I also received a lot of spare parts. So I had this exhaust pipe, like a spare one. I had, it was just the manifold of the exhaust. And then I had the engine cover on top, which I didn't really need this one because I already had the two that I needed. These I think are internal parts of the engine, like the cam, the top part of the camshaft, I think it's called. I think it's not the main one that is in the engine, but the one that is on top is for the valves, the valve shaft where the actual gears go and adjust the valves up, open and close. This, I think it was the clutch. So he had some spare parts for a clutch. Obviously, I didn't need these because mine was fully functional. And a lot of like bolts and nuts that actually go with the engine. So the person who sold it to me, I think he had even a fourth bike that he kind of disassembled completely. And he ended up with like spare parts. This is like the tensioner. And this was like a half of the engine. So it's like the top of the engine with the valves and everything in it. So this was a really good deal because I got all this stuff for free basically with the two bikes. I paid $100 for the bikes plus like the spare parts. Yeah, this was part of the clutch basically, the clutch cover, springs and everything else. And this is the shaft for the valves when the valves are adjusted. So I had all those in a bag basically. And now we go back to the one that I purchased. So this is the gear and the starter clutch that I purchased. The person who sold it to me, he took pictures and he sent me the parts. After I got them, I put them on. Let's see what this video is about. So I'm running it here, but after I put the parts on, I don't even have an air filter. It's just running through like the carburetor's fully open. Yeah, and you can hear sometimes like the starter clutch was just spinning. It would spin for free. And I think it was this rolls. The rolls were kind of consumed, and it's either the rolls or I think it was the actual shaft itself. I don't recall exactly. It might have been the shaft itself that was consumed, but it relies on this rolls to like move position as it shifts and kind of get stuck on the actual shaft and turn the engine. So that wasn't happening. It was sometimes like spinning. I think I have a video here. Yeah, so it wasn't always... Yeah, you see. It wasn't always having the same issue. Sometimes it would engage, sometimes it wouldn't. So it was basically very old. It's an old design of how the starter clutch works, and sometimes it would just free spin. And these are the points for the actual ignition. So I assembled all those together after I purchased it from the guy. And I think this is one of the first videos after I got it to run. As you can see, I'm putting like the gasoline in that small bottle there. I'm spraying the gasoline straight into the carburetors and measuring the voltage at the same time. It was really basic kind of stuff that I didn't really have much parts. I purchased the cover for the motorcycle seat. It was like $35, I think. And the other thing that I did is that I traded, as you can see, this bike now has exhaust. So I traded the gas tank and the exhaust. So I got it from a guy and I gave him like the spare parts that I had. So I had like half of the engine, I had the clutch stuff, and I had that engine cover. Everything in the picture that I just showed you earlier. I traded those basically for the exhaust and the tank. So the person got the spare half of the engine with the valves and everything, and I ended up with the parts that I needed to basically build the second bike. And this is as I was building it, so you can kind of see that it's still missing the airbox, and the seat cover is kind of messed up still. And I kind of bought a staple, a heavy-duty staple, and I put the seat cover on myself. And I ended up purchasing the air filter as well. I think it was like $35 on eBay. And I think I purchased a battery. I don't recall exactly, but you can kind of see that now it's starting to look more like a bike rather than what it was looking before. And I think I did purchase this rear fender as well. I don't recall exactly. I think it was $30, $40. I purchased this back with the backrest as well, obviously. And as you can see, I'm working outside in the parking lot here. So I started using them. I kept them for some time. I was riding mostly this one because it was cleaner and in better shape. I purchased the side covers too. I have other pictures. as I'm riding around. Started looking at the manual, at different specs, voltages, and the rollers that I mentioned. So I think this shaft of the gear was slightly below spec. So this was kind of one of the problems that I had, why the starter clutch was spinning. So this is another bike that was on the actual internet that I took pictures of. I bought the side mirrors, and when I bought the actual air filters and the side covers, I ended up with a bunch of like extra parts. As you can see here, I had like spare side covers. I purchased like 5 or 6 or 7, I don't remember, like 8 different side covers for like $30, and the guy sold me like the air filter. So he had a bunch of spare parts as well, and I also had other spare parts from before. So you can see kind of all of them here on the floor. And I still have some of them I haven't sold. It had like a complete wiring, the throttle. So after cleaning them up, this is what they started to look like. I put the side covers. I moved that seat on this other bike because this one was kind of a little bit cleaner. And here I painted the actual side covers, and I put the seat on that one, the seat cover, and then the other seat here, side covers here as well, just to make it look a little better. And I put LED turn signals, as you can see, the thin, very thin one. So I did some electrical work as well. And then I just started using them. I just was riding them for like, I don't know. You can see here is August 2023. But this is a year later. A phone holder there. I was just having fun riding them. These bikes were very, very powerful. So this is October 23. You see both of them kind of clean, took better pictures, and here is where I started to post them for sale. I was aiming to get, I think, 1,500 for each, based on like the market value, how much they were. But as you can see here, they started to look really, really nice after cleaning and painting the side covers. And I think I used the thin, I think it was not triple, it was like 4 zeros on the actual polish thing, the polish metal that I was using. I think it was steel wool. It was 4 zeros for the grade. So that was really, really good in cleaning the actual chrome and make it shiny. As you can see, I put the turn signals in the back, 2 LED. I put this small mirrors on the side, mostly cleaning it up. And this is the other bike. The exhaust was like kind of modified. It was cut here for the 4 pipes, and then it was basically 4 into 2. This was a little bit more louder, but yeah. And it had better compression, but the other one was in better shape, like generally. So yeah, then after that, I just, this is the starter gear actually, what it looked like. So I did, yeah, these are the spare parts that I mentioned earlier that I sold. They were in a box that I traded for the gas tank and everything else. This is the starter gear as I was assembling it. This is actually during the installation of the exhaust. Sorry for the pictures, they're not in order here, so it's kind of, I'm going back and forth. But yeah, here is where I'm trying to put the exhaust that I traded for the spare parts that I had. So I was trying to hold it with this bungee cord there and trying to align it in the front. It was not easy and not fun to align this whole thing. In the seat, this is before I purchased the actual cover. Yeah, so playing around with the exhaust, as you can see here. Here I did get the cover, the side cover, so I was starting to remove the tape and putting this headlight in the front. And yeah, this is the actual rear fender. So I was just looking at a bunch of pictures on the internet. This is one of the videos that I got it to run. This is October 2022, so I think this is one of the first tries when I'm starting to run it. The battery, I did put some acid. I think I put acid and distilled water in the battery because the battery was really bad. There are some videos where I'm trying to get it to run. And I think it also did not have a key, so this is the actual, one of the bikes at least didn't. So this is the actual ignition. So I had to pull the ignition out and see if I can get it to work. I did have a key for the side compartments, but I didn't have a key for the actual lock. So I ended up pulling this out from the ignition lock and realigning some of this. I forgot the name what these are called, like the plates that are inside, and it ended up working with the second key that I had. I mean, it wasn't a perfect match, but it was enough to like make it turn and get it to work basically. I believe I removed or I flipped a couple of these and it started working with the other key basically. So it wasn't perfect, but it got it going. I did get I think this was a petcock that I bought. It was like $13 for the gas tank because it didn't have one. And I think this was for the kickstand. It didn't have a kickstand. So this is the second motorcycle, the one that was in really bad shape. And so that's for the kickstand. This is for the gear shifter, I believe. So I had to basically redo a lot of these, and like I said, as you can see it here, this is like the one of the cleanest pictures that I had, and I ended up selling them both. I think it was in 2023. So after using them for like a year, I think I sold one for like $1,300, and then I sold the other one for I think $1,200. So it was not bad at all. I mean, I put a lot of work in it, don't get me wrong, but at the same time that you learn and you get a lot of tools, you kind of make some profit at the end as well. And this was basically my second project as far as motorcycles, and I'll make another video for other projects that I've worked on. So I just wanted to end the video here and show you guys for at least the CB1000s that I've worked. So I've had 3 so far, and like I said, I've made some decent profit. This was the actual bracket that held the actual headlight and the signals. But yeah, I think that covers everything for the CB. So I'll make another video for other projects that I've worked on, like I said. All right. Thank you, everyone.